Is everyone ready to start walking? Yeah? Do socially distance because we're not trying to go into, well, we're probably going to go into tier 3 anyway, but we don't want to rock the boat any more than we already have. So if everyone likes to make sure that they're in groups of 6 at most, and we all socially distance and space apart, okay?
Black lives what? Black lives what? Justice for Shukri Abdi! No justice, no peace. Take to the streets and fuck the police. No justice, no peace. Take to the streets and fuck the police. No justice, no peace. Take to the streets and fuck the police. No justice, no peace. Justice, no peace. Boris Johnson's a racist. Boris Johnson's a racist. Boris Johnson's a racist. Boris Johnson's a racist. Stand up! Fight back! Fight back! Stand up! Stand up! Fight back! Fight back! Stand up! Fight back! Black lives what? Matter! Black lives what? Matter! Black lives what? Black lives what? Matter! Black lives what? Power! Black lives what? Matter! Black lives what? Power! Racism is getting old. Stand up! Stand up! Fight back! Fight back! Stand up! Stand up! Fight back! No justice, no peace! Treat the fucking police! No justice, no peace! Black men with no warrant. Black lives what? Matter! Black lives what? Matter! Black lives who? Matter! Black lives when? Matter! Black lives where? Matter! Racism is getting old. I don't know what you've been told. I don't know what you've been told. Racism is really old. Take to the streets to fuck the police. No justice, no peace. Take to the streets to fuck the police. No justice, no peace. Black lives what? Matter! Black lives what? Matter! Black lives where? Protect the people there. Protect the people there. Protect the man there. You're about to lose your jobs. You're about to lose your jobs as you detain black men with no warrants. You're about to lose your funds. And you're about to lose your jobs. You're about to lose your jobs because you detain black men with no warrant. Statues, yeah? We don't know about statues and pulling down statues. Global history. So if you lot see any sort of racist statues, racist people there, you don't know what you're doing, innit? You don't know what you're doing. That's what I'm saying. You don't know what you're doing. You're about to lose your job because you detain black men with no warrant. You're about to lose your job. You're about to lose your job. You're about to lose your job because you detain black men with no warrant. You've been told. racist thing where they have the coolest monkey in the jungle thing. So I just want all of you lot here to just stand here, put your middle finger up at H&M, yeah? Fuck H&M! Fuck H&M! Fuck Black Lives what? Black Lives what? Every single fucking day. Black Lives fucking matter, you ugly prick. Black Lives fucking matter, you piece of gammon. Back for it. Anyway, Black Lives who? What? Where? Black Lives what? How many Black Lives Matter? All Black Lives Matter. How many? How many? How many? Protect the man them. Protect the girl them. Protect the trans them. Protect the people them. And I don't know what you've been told. But racism is getting old. Stand up. Fight back. Stand up. Fight back. Stand up. Fight back. Black Lives what? What? Who?
My name's Reverend Malika. I'm a local interfaith minister and I'm really passionate about Black Lives Matter. I've been protesting for black rights since I was like 15, 16. 35 years I've been doing this type of stuff and it means a real lot to me. My grandmother came here in the Windrush and she was badly treated in the 60s and 70s by the white communities here. I lived in a white working class community as a child and I was called racist names most of my young childhood days. Because I'm a Christian, I used to pray and ask God to try and make me teach me how to teach these awful children to be a bit kind. So they were my first experiences. And then I had it in my teenage years. We had a lot of gang tension and also we had a lot of police brutality where our protesters and community leaders would constantly get beaten in the streets. So from a very young age, it's been part of me. I've got 2 sons and they've struggled in the education system and they've also experienced racism inside education and outside education as well, and with the police as well. So it's something that's really important to me. I think a lot of the things that we need is more education. We need lots of conversations, and especially with black and white people, because as much as we've got the post-traumatic slave disorder and we've got the racism that we're experiencing, there is also white supremacy going on, and everyone has to take responsibility in it really. So for me, it's about more conversations, changing of policies, putting new rules in, and also education as well. And more protesting. I love to protest. If I could protest every day, I would protest every day.
Other people may have other opinions of Black History Month.
Yeah.
They may not understand what it is. Why do black people have a whole month to themselves? Would you like to just explain why that is?
We're the most hated race in the whole global world, and we're the most worst treated. And in the normal education system, they don't teach our history. And black history is very rich. It's our culture and it's what we are and what we know and we've been taught, and we teach our children that. So it's really vital and important that it shines, there's a light shining on it to benefit not just us and help us celebrate, but also to educate our next generations and also to educate non-black people as well. Just wish more people would come, and we should be doing it every Sunday, not just every now and again, to be honest. It needs to be a regular thing, regular. It should just be happening more, and I just wish there was more people here. But I love to protest, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask. I'm really passionate about protesting.
Right, so our first speaker today is a beautiful black queen called Maggie.
Hi everyone, sorry, I'm so new to this public speaking thing, and these guys amazingly asked me if I would like to join and say a little something around my experience. So I've just wrote a little bit down. So I was born in Zimbabwe and moved to the UK at age 7. I grew up in a very small, predominantly white town. At first, I really didn't notice how people treated me differently until I really got to high school. So things that stood out to me were watching Roots, and it seemed like that was the only way that my school could educate us about black history. And because of this, everyone asked me if I lived in mud ruts and if I walked around naked. this was not the case. Everyone gathered round me every time I'd have my hair done, asking me if this was my real hair, why my hair was short the last day before, why my hair was long the next day. I even got held a year back when I first came to England because my teachers didn't think that I could understand how I could work, how I was educated. They thought if they held me back a year, I could finally catch up with everyone else. Little did they realise that I was as smart as everyone else, and I got moved forward. The list is endless, and sadly it continued to adulthood. Still to this day, I get people asking me why I don't sound black. Please tell me, how is black meant to speak? I speak because the way I speak is I'm educated. This has been a vicious circle of hatred for black people, and I feel like this year has been the year for us to actually make the start of something big. Slowly our voices are being heard, we are being seen and we are being recognised, but we still have a long way to go. It's time for us to finally unite and start empowering each other. This movement isn't political to me. It's not black versus white, it's everyone versus racism. Thank you.
It's called Nothing New. I did perform it last time, but it's very a cathartic thing for me, so I'm going to do it again. It's hard to speak when all your words have been said. Your energy is spent, tongue tied up in a vent of empty rented space, releasing something. Attempting two-step pirouettes, but barely holding the balance from descent. It's hard to speak when all your words have been said over and over again to bored friends, by boring friends, or someone more eloquent than yourself. You reply, picking words from a clever carousel, but really less intellectual than your bookshelf. It's hard to speak when all your words have been said, and yet you're standing on a stage built to platform black voices, but you were born with a megaphone, 3 rungs up the ladder, a rich white father. An artificial privilege, only as real as plastic, strongly constructed, but unnatural. A lot more visible, but still disposable. It's hard to speak when all your words have been said, and to be honest, I thought they made sense, but still, they hear one thing. Leftist, liberal, radical, sorry, for wanting justice, equality, peace. And since when did liberal become politically correct? I just thought it meant free. My bad. Actually, no. You're bad. You are bad because you understand and you just don't care. So you will forever be more bad than the racist who doesn't understand. I know you think one day I'll get tired. And it's true, one day I will retire. But right now, I am still speaking. And although I may say nothing new, I feel renewed. So thank you for listening. Thank you.
The beautiful Naylor from Stand Up to Racism is here to speak to us today. Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to talk about the fact that it's so important that we're still here today, because actually when people saw what happened to George Floyd, I think it's really important that people took to the streets. But I also want to say this, it isn't just about standing in solidarity with George Floyd and his family and friends. It's about recognising actually that the same system that allowed the police to kill George Floyd with such impunity is the same system that stops and harasses and searches black kids on streets in Manchester and across this country. It's the same system that excludes black kids from our schools. It's the same system that allows black people to be disproportionately impacted by COVID. Let's be very clear about this. This isn't about standing in solidarity with what's happening in the US. This is about recognising that the fight is our fight as well. That actually racism isn't just about the US, it's here in Britain, and we deal with it day in, day out. And I think it's absolutely fantastic that people are still out on the streets. We're still fighting, we're still demanding justice, because actually we can't go away until we fought. This is more important than anything we've done, because actually this is literally a matter of life and death. Whether it's an impact of COVID, and let's face it, black people will lose their lives more because of this, because we're black. It's as simple as that. All the data shows it. And actually, you know what? They go on about immigrants and refugees and, you know, the other. This government goes on about it all the time. They'll go on about health tourism, people coming to this country, taking our benefits, using our health system. Well, actually, the one thing we saw with COVID is actually the names of the health workers that first lost their lives. The majority of them were black. The majority of them were migrant. Let's be very clear about that. And so when this government goes on about unskilled workers, that we don't want them here, well, let's be quite honest, they're not unskilled. They're just low paid. They're the workers that work on the front line of our NHS, whether they're the cleaners, the porters, whether it's the support workers in the schools, whether it's the people stacking our shelves, whether it's people that are delivering our groceries. These are the people that have kept this country growing under COVID. It's not the politicians, it's not the millionaires, it's working class people, and I think that's why it's so important that we keep on fighting for justice, black and white unity together. And let me say this, no one is going to give us justice. We have to fight for it. We have to fight for it like we're doing today. We're out today, we are socially distanced, we are organised, we're responsible, but we're going to keep up the fight until we push the racists off our streets, including this Tory government. Let's be very clear. Including, not the Tories. And I just want to say this, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Charles from Fight Racism, Fight Imperialism, it's our newspaper. You'd have seen us going around with it. Yesterday there was a massive demonstration in Moston in Manchester called under the banner of End SARS. SARS is the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, a unit of the police in Nigeria. Throughout Nigeria, millions of people from all over the country have taken to the streets in an unprecedented, spontaneous mass movement against police brutality. Just to give you a little flavour of what the police in Nigeria do on a daily basis, they extort people who are walking down the street or driving down the street. They drive them to the ATM and get them to empty out their bank accounts. People who refuse to pay a bribe can be killed for as little as 10p. There's no accountability, there's total impunity. People are tortured, people are raped, and like I said, people are killed by the Nigerian police on a regular basis. Not only are the police unaccountable, but also the politicians. The politicians steal on a daily basis from the Treasury, the senators, all the politicians, they're all thieves. And the reason that the police have impunity is because it is the police's job to protect the current order, to protect the politicians so that they can continue stealing. Part of this theft as well is also carried out by foreign corporations, namely oil companies. So Nigeria is a major oil producer. It's in the top 10 oil producing countries in the world. The oil is controlled mainly by British, Italian, French and US corporations. They steal oil from Nigeria. The wealth that Nigeria generates is deposited in foreign banks, and that means that the majority of Nigerians, about over 90%, survive on less than $2 a day. Now this system of exploitation, whereby Nigerian wealth, either through the oil or through paying of debt to the IMF and the World Bank, this system is part of the imperialist system of oppression. Just as an aside, you will not be surprised to know that the British police, the Metropolitan Police, have also been involved in training the Nigerian police, just as they are involved in working with oppressive police forces throughout the world. So you always see the link between British imperialism and the oppression of working class people, black people all over the world. So as we're here fighting against racism, we must remember that there is a link between racism and imperialism. It is this imperialist oppression that forces countries around the world to hand over their resources to the rich countries, either through their banks or through multinational corporations, to hand over their resources. It forces them into poverty, it traps them in poverty. They're trapped in debt. And so the imperialist system forces millions of people who can't find work, healthcare or education, forces them to migrate to the richer countries. We see in the Americas, from South America to North America, and we see in Europe from the Middle East to the European countries, and we see in Britain, where people come from all over the world, migrating here to flee the consequences of imperialism. And then when they get here, that racism, that that national oppression where the imperialists oppress their countries is reflected in racism. Racism is nothing more than national oppression inside the imperialist countries. So you can't separate racism from imperialism. You can't separate the oppression of black people in this country from the oppression of Nigeria or Congo or South Africa, where British companies, British banks are stealing the resources of these countries. They are arming and funding and training the police and the military in these countries to oppress their people so that they don't rise up against their poverty and their oppression. So it's all linked. And throughout British history, whether we've had a Labour Party in power or a Tory party in power, both of them have been racist. Both of them have supported imperialism. That has always been the case from day one. Don't let anybody fool you. What we need to get rid of is the imperialist system, the capitalist system that oppresses all of us. Okay? And we should support the Black Lives Matter protests. And it is not just solidarity with what is happening in the US. It is also about the oppression of black people in this country, but it's also about the oppression of the working class, Muslims, gypsies, working class people in this country as well. I should just mention as well that we are now in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, and the disease is spreading throughout the whole country. But as ever, the worst affected areas are working class areas in the northeast and the northwest and in the Midlands. Areas where there are large populations of poor people in overcrowded housing with high proportion of black and ethnic minority people. It's not a coincidence. When the first wave ended, it came down to maybe pre-COVID levels in the southeast and other parts of Britain, but not in the northwest. The levels never came down to zero. They never came down to pre-COVID levels because people from ethnic minority backgrounds are stuck in working jobs where they have to face the public. They are on 0-hour contracts, so they have to work. If there's no sick pay, there's no holiday, they have to work, so they're exposed to the virus. They go home to overcrowded housing, right? So they can't isolate. If they're infected, they can't isolate from their family. And so that means that the disease is endemic now in those populations, in those areas of the country. This is a consequence of the privatization of the NHS, which the Labour Party did from when it was in power from 1997 to 2010 and carried on by this Tory government. It is a consequence of the sell-off of public housing by Labour and Tory governments and councils. They've sold off public housing, they've privatised it. There's a lot of houses being built, but it is out of the reach of ordinary working class people who can't get on the housing ladder. So the public housing has been sold off, so people are stuck in overcrowded housing, stuck with disease, stuck with poverty. Disease and poverty go hand in hand, and that is the responsibility of both political parties. There's no good party amongst any of them. They are all enemies of the working class. And surprise, surprise, the worst affected communities with coronavirus are black and ethnic minority community. That reflects the racism in Britain. So we're not just talking about police brutality, we're not just talking about stop and search, we're talking about a whole system of oppression, and it oppresses people here and all over the world. Thank you very much.
Like everyone after me, end SARS. End SARS.
Hi there guys, I'm just gonna say a few words. A few days ago, I was on the bus and my coat was closed, so this guy came on the bus and didn't see this. And he basically started slagging me off because I didn't have a mask on. And he told me to go back to my country. I grew up here. I'm from Angola. My parents are from Angola. My whole family is African. I'm African. And I'm really proud of being African. And I think most of you guys have also gone through this. I've been called a monkey. I've been called wild. I've been called exotic. I've been told that I don't belong here. People have often asked me, how do you have such a British accent and you're black? what's the problem with having an English accent? I'm educated, I grew up here, so I have the accent. I think we're tired. It's 2020 and we still go through this situation. Certain people have the audacity to make us feel like shit, like we don't belong here, like we're not human, like we're just literally a piece of trash for them to step on. And we need to take a stand. Racism's not going to end today, it's not going to end tomorrow, but one day it will end, it has to end. We're tired. Our ancestors did not fight, did not go through slavery for today, us to still be here and still be treated like slaves, like we're not shit, for police to literally treat us like we don't deserve a normal life, like we have to be treated like criminals. You see a black person in a hoodie and the police approaches you and asks you for your ID. I've been in the middle of white people, friends, and I was the only one who was asked if I was legal, if I was fucking legal because of my fucking skin color. I am so proud to be black. I'm proud of my nappy hair. I'm proud of my big lips. I'm proud of being African. All of us black people have nothing to be ashamed of. We should all be proud of being black, and we need to stand together and stop this shit because it is tiring and we literally need to stop it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I'm also on the subject, black women who come up and stood here and spoke on their truths, on their lived experiences, on what it's like to be black. And they're constantly fighting for us over and over and over again. Today, one of my best friends woke up this morning and she was feeling horrible. She tried to commit suicide and she couldn't turn up here today. She's one of the co-founders. Her name is Natasha Johnson. One thing that we need to do, and this is for man them, this is for the gal them, this is for the trans them, this is for all of us here, we need to protect our black women. Like, we really need to do a better job at protecting our black women, because what the fuck is going on? If 2 + 2 is 4 and 5 + 5 is 10, what the fuck is this? Yeah? We need to protect our black women. Black women are the birth of a nation. If it wasn't for black women, black men wouldn't be here. If black men weren't here, white men wouldn't be here. White women wouldn't be here. Black women are... Oh, can we just have a big round of applause for black women, please? Like, if you've got a black woman next to you, just say, I love you and I appreciate you. Now, the lovely Tanya would like to speak.
Hi guys, I'm a little nervous, but I'll try to compose myself. My name is Tanya and I am the founder of Never Taught in School and Teach Black Studies UOM. So they're basically organizations that help decolonize education. Okay, so today I'm going to be speaking about my experience in racism and just general decolonization. My experience growing up in the UK has definitely been really tumultuous. I grew up in a predominantly white area and I grew up with people that were very narrow-minded. And I think my first experience of racism was when I was 6 or 7. And what happened was we were on a school trip and this little kid came up to me and he was like telling me how ugly my skin was. And the one thing I remember he said was, there's a reason why black isn't in the Union Jack, which kind of confused me for a while because I was thinking that there's a lot of colors that aren't in the Union Jack, so I didn't really get that he was being racist, but then eventually it kind of dig deep and I understood what he meant. And I think what stuck out to me was the fact that someone so young could say something so evil and vindictive and have those thoughts of racism at such a small age. Fast forward, when I was in middle school, I had this boy racially abuse me, and the thing that stuck out to me was not really what he did or what he said, it was what the teacher said to me. She goes and says, it's not Ben's fault what he said and what he did. He has issues and he has learning difficulties. You're mature enough to ignore this. And bear in mind, I was about 10 or 11 years old. And to me, that spoke to me and kind of like, I realized that the fact that this teacher had no empathy for a black child. She couldn't really understand the kind of severity of the situation. That basically brings me on to why I think that in the UK there's a real issue in racism. Obviously in the UK we're taught that racism is a bad thing, but I don't think people are really taught how racist the UK is. We think about school, I remember when I was doing history, we learn about the civil rights in the US, we learn about the slavery in the US, But why is it that I never knew about the Bristol bus boycott or the UK Black Panthers till last year? Sure, we don't have police in the UK. We don't have police with guns in the UK. But that's not the only form of racism. Racism is also the fact that I never put my last name on CVs because I was afraid I wasn't going to get the job. Racism is also the fact that I was labelled as being aggressive for speaking my mind, but that then was just labelled as having issues. So basically, I'm going to speak about what I do. Never Taught in School was basically conceptualized because I love my country. I'm a proud Zimbabwean, if you guys didn't know. But growing up, I've always been told to be embarrassed about my culture, to be embarrassed about being African. And the way that the media portrays how African people are, how black people are, is not the reality. When Never Taught in School, basically what I do is I teach people about Afro-Caribbean culture. I teach them about the good and the bad, but I teach them a balanced image of what African people and what Afro-Caribbean people have done. A lot of the things we learn in school, we don't learn about the contributions of black people. We have been here since the Roman times. We have contributed so much to this country. So it puzzles me to hear people say that they're anti-immigration, that they're saying that immigrants are stealing their jobs, when really and truly British culture and British society has been built on stealing other people's cultures, resources, and their money. My other organisation is called Teach Black Studies UOM. It's a coalition of students and alumni like myself who want to bring more black studies to the University of Manchester. So again, it's another decolonisation organisation. Please follow us on Instagram and support our campaign. And yeah, that's all I had to say. Thank you very much.
The next person we've got speaking now is Akemia. Everyone give Akemia a lovely round of applause. Thank you.
I'm a youth, I own a youth organisation now in my side called 84 Youth, and this is kind of coming from experiences of working in that community, growing in that community. So, right, did I make you feel uncomfortable? Okay, well, I'm not apologising. Now, I have to add that in a lot of meetings, and my response is always like, try multiplying the uncomfortableness by maybe 100. Imagine feeling that every day, and you'll have some idea of how people live in black communities. There was a time when I wouldn't stick my neck out in a meeting with those deemed higher than me. Now I represent my own organisation, and my team are all black, and out of 12 of them, 9 are under the age of 25. Young people and the community I live in, rather than an organisation that would be concerned about possible backlash, political backlash, or potential funding problems that speaking out of turn could bring. This has made it easier for me to be honest and allowed me to speak with passion, and dare I say anger. Others in the meeting seem fascinated by this, regularly remarking on it in almost an amused way. The anger that sometimes peeks through the passion makes people feel uncomfortable, at least most of them. Occasionally someone will try and respond in a patronising manner which generally comes across badly. Most simply look uncomfortable, though one or two understand where the anger and passion comes from. They may approvingly give me a nod and a smile as if to confirm it, and all but the secret smilers are, I assume, coming from a place of privilege, typically academia or management, but definitely not experience. So why the anger and passion? If they'd experienced the impact of institutional racism in the police or the criminal justice system, my anger and passion would be more understandable. I wouldn't be expected to apologise, and it's likely they'd feel angry too. If they knew firsthand, rather than through the media or some distant person that they'd heard about, the true impact and devastation that happens as a result of institutional racism, they wouldn't feel uncomfortable. Rather, they'd join in on my anger too. If they knew the extent of the trauma felt by many communities as well as individuals, they wouldn't feel uncomfortable. They'd be angry too. If they were then expected to sit in a meeting where attendees are usually in a position of privilege, not considering anyone close to them could ever be a victim of gross miscarriage of justice, they wouldn't feel uncomfortable. They should be angry too. But anger is something that black and brown communities feel all the time, but are forced to deal with daily, whether through big things or through forms of microaggressions. But even that term, microaggression, minimises the incidents that in reality have a massive impact over a long period of time. A source of anger experienced often is the gang narrative. The gang narrative is the labelling of young, predominantly black men as potential or probable gang members, based on little or no evidence, and often supported by a matrix or organised crime group background, very loosely associated names. Therefore, it is often based on mistaken beliefs and stereotypes rather than fact. For example, a couple of years ago, GMP had 89% black British young men on their database. Yet 78% of serious youth violence in Manchester is white British. For people living in these communities, this has long been known to be problematic. Along with this narrative are the real-life threat-to-life notices, the joint enterprise doctrine of criminal liability, the disproportionate use of stop and search against young black men. The criminal justice system uses the gang as an integral part of trials, verdicts and sentencing, which disproportionately affects black children. This narrative, therefore, is virtually impossible to disrupt due to its entrenchment and normalisation throughout the system. Let me ask you, how many people, when seeing a group of young black men, have crossed the street or held their bag a bit tighter or took any other precaution? I'm not judging you if you have, because this system portrayal of stereotypes of this group is historical and relentless. If you grew up in the UK, you were indoctrinated this from birth. By the time you're able to think for yourself and can think out of the box, you can't fail to see that this indoctrination is wrong. Only the most basic thinkers wouldn't question it and would continue to feel superior to anyone who doesn't look, act or want to be like them. But ultimately, racism is a white problem. The system that allows white superiority to flourish while oppressing and putting black people at disadvantage was set up by white people. The system that continues to maintain this status quo is upheld by white people, which shows how deeply ingrained in society it is, as it's rare that a black person will ever have a seat at the decision-making table. The cognitive dissonance involved in keeping this system in place is phenomenal. And if you research cognitive dissonance, it can be viewed as a mental illness. The easiest way to break this down would be to use slavery as an example. God-fearing, Bible-reading, church-going slave owners, convinced of their godliness, somehow managed to believe that their treatment towards African scientists, doctors, human beings, was for the greater good, and they deserved the wealth that came from the dehumanization of Africans, all based on the melanin that an individual has. And considering that melanin is more valuable than gold by weight, that doesn't even make any sense. Like I said, racism is a white problem, but its implementation makes it problematic for black people. It can't be left to black people to fix because it's not their invention. White people need to listen, take guidance, support, show up, and begin to dismantle the structures that are in place. Read from a black perspective. White people can never fully understand the impact of racism on a personal level because reverse racism doesn't exist. What people see as reverse racism can only be described as prejudice, as there's no institutional power behind it. Racism is a problem for all of us. It denies the truth, it denies greatness, and it denies humanity. So if we want to see a change, we've got to work towards that. Last year I was asked to write just a few notes for somebody on activism and what our advice would be. So for activist daughters, friends, mothers and women from the future, fight from a love ethos, fight for love. Don't fight for hate, but love fiercely. Stay unapologetic, stay passionate. You'll get angry, use that as motivation. Channel that fire positively, it's powerful. Learn daily, teach daily. Don't argue with ignorance, leave that. Always distinguish between ignorance and lack of knowledge. Understand we're all at different points on this journey. Don't be judgmental of those that are not as far as you. You once were them. Don't get consumed, life's too short. Be vibrant, feel things in your soul, be alive and rest. Check your ego, grow yourself, acknowledge your blessings. Information is power, but sharing information is more powerful. Peace.
There's a very important thing that we're talking about, and it's just the whole, because obviously you can see my skin colour. Like, I can never know what it is to face racism on a day-to-day level, on an institutional level, but one thing I do know is poverty. And another thing that I know is that we have killed multiple democratically elected leaders of countries in the developed nations, in the colonised nations. Like Kwame Nkrumah, for one. The first democratically elected leader of Ghana was killed a year after he was elected. He was murdered because he refused to allow neoliberalism to go in his country and extract his resources and prevent people from being able to get money, to get housing, to get decent clothing, to be able to get protection from the elements, because this system doesn't want that. The Windrush generation, this country decides to call in for bringing in hundreds of people, thousands of people into this country to be labour, to be cheap labour, because of their economic recession from the market system that they instated. And then now what's happened? They've not given them any protection. They're trying to send them back to Jamaica, where multiple of them don't have a fucking family. My brother's mate, currently a DJ here in Manchester, has got an extracted to Jamaica. He has no family in there. He's not lived there since he was 1 year old, and he's been sent back because that's how little they care about black labour. That's how little they care about bringing people in who work to keep this country running. They care none. They will send them back immediately because it suits their interests. They will kill any sort of thing that faces the system that we have in place, and they will institute people who will represent the previous colonisation in a blackface, with people who will let the resources be extracted from places like the Congo, which would be rich nations if not for their minerals being extracted for them to make fucking iPhones.
Since I came to this country, this is coming to now my 18 years, and all I have been seeing, or what I observe by myself, I see a lot of people. Let's forget about racism. Let's forget about colors. Let's talk about life. We are here talking about life, not color, not about white or black. We are talking about life. Whose life is better than another? None. We are all brought by God to this earth. We don't pay him nothing. Nobody is a foreigner. Everyone is an immigrant. Anybody you see on the earth here, he came. Nobody bring yourself here. England is not better than Africa. England is not better than America. We are all human beings. Nobody is born better than nobody. We all came in the same way. So we have to take it from now. What passed is past already. What happened to my ancestors, it happens already. But it cannot happen to me, and it will not happen to my children if I am alive. Because we can do this together. We can do it together. We cannot just come here, we talk, and then go and forget everything. We have to be observant. We have to be checking things. If you see anything that is happening to somebody and you know you can do something about it, talk about it. Don't keep quiet. We all here, look, these pigeons they are flying here, but if you feed these pigeons, they charge you 120 pounds. What is that? You see how many homeless people are here? It's not only black people. It's different. We talk about life. Life is, that matters. It's not about color. Forget the color. We are talk about life. We all came here in the same way. You're born in England, you're born in Africa, you are a human being. Nobody is born better than any other person. If you are a billionaire, keep your money. If you are poor, keep your dignity. You know, because we all know that if you have, or if this whole Manchester belongs to me, doesn't mean that I'm better than you people. If I'm the billionaire, doesn't mean I'm better than you. If you die, where do you go? On the floor. They just dig 1 meter and then put you there, and next 2 hours we forget you. So who are we? Who are we? This is what we should think about. This is what we should put in our mind, and forget about color. Color is from God. If you see this earth, the first thing you see is black. The soil, look, the topmost layer is black. God chose black long time, so you cannot deny that. I cannot deny. Nobody can deny that. It's up to our own mind that is driving us crazily. Our own mind is driving us. That is bringing all this trouble in the whole world. Fighting. Look, people are bombing each other. They say Corona is killing people. People are dropping bombs on people. What is that one? We are talking about life. People are dying just like that. If you go to Africa, you have better life. If you come here, you have better life. But we think that if you come from Africa, you come here, you get better. No, it's not true. Education, we can be educated anywhere you are. Even if you are in the jungle, you can be educated. So life matters. Thank you very much.
We're here to monitor the police actions at Black Lives Matter and related protests. We're not here to monitor the actions of protesters or activists. We are here to support the activists' right to protest. We do this by documenting what's happening. Sort of every 5 minutes we'll be writing down what happens, and then we formalise those notes afterwards. We're also here giving out bust cards. So these are cards with information about your rights upon arrest and your rights to protest. They also have some helpful numbers of lawyers that you can contact if you are arrested, although, you know, touch wood, that would would never happen. We're here to support you if, for example, there was police violence, if a protester was prosecuted, or if they wanted to make a complaint about or make a civil claim against a police officer. So we do that by having this presence here today, as I've explained, but also some of us are legally trained and can provide support after the protest. So for example, if there was some police brutality and someone wanted to make a civil claim against the police, then they could come to us and say, could you act as a witness? Did you have legal observers there? And that's kind of how it works.
Thank you very much, Holly.
Hi, I'm Becca. I'm head of the contact team for All Black Lives Manc. I think today the process has been very successful. We've seen a great increase in the momentum in Manchester, and we're hoping to increase the momentum every single time we have a protest. The numbers have grown significantly since last time, and I think people were very invigorated by having a march through Manchester, and we've got a lot of people joining the protests behind us while we were marching, so I think we've run really well. For the next protest, we're going to be having it more in advance, so hopefully more people will know about it, and it will be more organised next time. Not that it wasn't organised this time, but you know, it will be more organised, more people should know about it. There will be more posters up, and we will have, we'll hopefully have some really amazing speakers next time as well. We'll give them lots of preparation. I think that what we need to learn from the All Black Lives movement that's happening nationwide, we have branches nationwide, is that black people in this country are discriminated against, and this country is pretty much the top purveyor of racism around the world. We created colonialism pretty much, and we're still seeing the after effects of that. Black History Month, we need to be bringing attention to things like this. We need to be bringing attention to the way that black women are much more likely to die, during childbirth than white women. That black people on the streets of Britain are disproportionately affected by stop and search procedures, are disproportionately targeted by the Metropolitan Police in London, and we need to revamp the education system to make sure that black voices are heard in the UK. And we also need to invigorate the government to actually be doing something about racism. The government is far and away, they're always looking to be doing something about racism, but don't actually do anything. We've got a list of hundreds of recommendations that have been made by many commissions that the government has set up, yet none of their recommendations are implemented. And why is that? Because they don't care about black lives in this country. It's something that we need to show the government that people in this city care about, not just in London. It's a nationwide thing, and we need to be educating people, and that's why we have infographics on our Instagram as well, to educate people about the things that we are marching for, not just about things I've just mentioned, but also things like the Pan-African anniversary that happened over this month in Manchester, like the history of colonialism affecting people in Manchester, and we do specifically focus on issues that are happening like to Manc unions. Everyone in this country is affected by Black History Month. Black history is all around us in England. When we finished World War II, we literally got the Windrush generation to come over and rebuild for us. You can see it all around you, so even if you feel like you're not affected by it, you are. I would recommend anyone to go out, just search about systemic racism in Britain, and start to educate themselves on how it's affected, educate themselves on microaggressions, educate themselves on race, how racism is presented in the UK, and about white privilege, because it is really important. And I think that even white people who are walking past these movements, you don't think that they're involved, you don't think that we're speaking to them. We're especially speaking to them. Racism is a white problem, and therefore it needs a white solution, and white people to come up with a solution for it, because it's not on black people to make us less racist. Our Instagram is All Black Lives Manc, and our Facebook is All Black Lives Manc as well. We'll be putting on our events on our Facebook and both our Instagram as well, and our main Instagram is All Black Lives UK, so if you want any information about protests nationwide as well, that's a great place to go.